Doing nothing can really get to you. Sometimes Sean goes out just to be out.
You have to get out and look for jobs.
Why don't you do a course?
Are you sure you're really looking?
Jobs won't come knocking on the door, you know.
Dear Sean, how's the crack? It must be murder trying to get work at home. I tried a few places before coming to London, so I know what it's like. Of course everyone says, what about courses? There's loads of courses, but there's no money in them. The jobs and the big money are over here. Why don't you cop on and come over? There's absolutely nothing at home, so it has to be better over here.
Sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, wir landen in wenigen Minuten auf dem Münchner Flughafen. Bevor Sie die Gepäckhalle betreten, werden Sie gebeten, Ihren Reisepass der Einwanderungskontrolle vorzulegen. Das Gepäck von Flug 604 wird sich auf Band B befinden. Alle Passagiere müssen die Zollkontrolle des Münchner Flughafens passieren.
If you haven't understood the commentary up to now, should you be here? Munich is the capital city of Bavaria in West Germany. Located on the Isar River, within sight of the Bavarian Alps, Munich is where the Germans would like to live. Munich is also a mecca for job seekers from all over Europe. Emer arrived 3 days ago. She booked into the youth hostel before coming. The maximum stay is 3 nights. Emer has a job starting tomorrow. She has nowhere to stay tonight.
It's really hard to get places. People said before I came it was going to be difficult, but I had no idea how difficult it was going to be. I start tomorrow, if I can find somewhere to stay. But I'm lucky in that I worked at home in a stock exchange and in a stockbroker's office, so that experience got me a job in the stock exchange in Munich. My only problem is that if I end up sleeping in a tent somewhere or other in the Hauptbahnhof, I'll be getting up to put on my working clothes and my suit, and I have my travel iron in my rucksack, so I'll be trying to iron everything and appear neat and tidy at the stock exchange, having got up from a tent.
From a tent is where many young Irish experience Munich. Thalkirchen is an enormous campsite within a short bus ride of central Munich. The maximum stay is 14 days. Thalkirchen is always clean, well-equipped and busy, and sometimes wet. Sooner or later, most of the Irish find their way for information and advice to Sennefelderstrasse and St. Killian's Pastoral Centre. Accommodation is the greatest problem presented to Hugh Jones and the St. Killian staff.
Munich is notorious, with maybe 2 other cities in Germany, for its lack of accommodation, given that Germans themselves have difficulty getting accommodation. An Irish guy or girl ringing up, only being able to offer 3 months' rent, asking for everything in English, just spells too many problems for the landlord to want to go through the legalities, all the paperwork, the bureaucracy of setting someone up with an apartment, because in the long term, 3 months just isn't worth it.
Thousands of hopefuls arrive in Munich each year. The majority haven't arranged a job or a place to stay. The Hauptbahnhof, Munich's railway station, is where most of them arrive. For Jack, Kevin, and many others, it's also where they stay.
At the moment we're sleeping over at the train station as it's known to the people that stay there, we call it the hotel hop and hop. So we're staying there at the moment, you know. So and we can't see any accommodation coming up. You know, we don't know what to do. You spend the evening sitting around the train station, go to bed. You just get into a sleeping bag, find a spot where you think it's safe enough. You know, at the moment there's maybe 40, 50 Irish guys staying there every night, and then we just, you know, kip down for the night. And every morning then it's about 6:15. The police come around with dogs and stuff like that. And they just, either you get out or you're pulled out of the sleeping bag. You know, I mean, don't come out here just, you know, ad hoc, just jumping on a boat and thinking that everything's going to be rosy in the garden when you come out, because, you know, we've spent 10 days in the train station and it's, you know, it's not nice whatsoever, you know, it's not on.
If you want to work in Germany, short or long term, you must come here for a residence permit and wait. Getting your papers takes time, and time costs money. When the summer students leave, people like Sil remain. Sil prepared for 2 months before leaving Cork. He slept in hostels and tried 20 hotels before he got a job and accommodation from BMW.
I got up at 4:30 this morning. I just had breakfast, I had a shower. I left for work then at about 5:15. We get in there around, be ready for work at 5:45. You know, you have to be there 10 minutes beforehand to get all your machinery ready, all your equipment ready. And once 6 o'clock comes, you're in full production at that stage. You know, there's no hanging about. You don't come in at 5 past or 10 past 6. If you do that 2 or 3 days, you'll be out. Well, it's all go. And once you start at 6 in the morning, you work through. Then, well, you have a break at 12, a break at 9 o'clock, and you work right through till 2:30. You're finished, and that's your 8 hours finished for the day. You're off then until 6 the following morning.
Getting on, or even getting by in Germany is very difficult if you can't speak German. In any country, your chances of getting a good job if you are illiterate are extremely limited. The language classes at St. Kilian's are a chance for Sil to better himself.
It's uphill all the way. You know, you're in a foreign country and you can't speak the language. You can't read or write, really. So you've got to be prepared to do whatever comes along.
For many young Irish emigrants, hotel work is ideal. The pay is good and the digs are provided. Anne Ryan started as a chambermaid 4 years ago.
Hello.
She's working now as a housekeeper in a prestigious Munich hotel.
Just a few little things, the corners, okay? Yeah. I just didn't want to be chambermaid for the rest of my life here. So I decided to change, and I met a lot of people then in the hotel. I made a mistake by the first year just being with Irish, just having Irish friends all the time. I wasn't learning the language, I wasn't getting to know the German people, the culture, the country. We were just going out every night to pictures, English cinema, of course, no interest in the language, sitting maybe having a couple of drinks. And you have to try and mix with the Germans and have an interest in the language as well, or else you won't get on.
Brenda and Francis both have jobs and places of their own. Like many other emigrants, the time they find hardest is after work.
In Germany, they never let you forget you're an Ausländer. And you need the language and be able to speak it very well, read and write it.
If you want to stay here, like
But if you stayed here, if you got the language, I know a few people have good jobs out of it, like working in the post office now. So the money's good, the living standard's good.
Yeah.
What more do you want?
You know, you're on your own sort of thing, and you get homesick, and it's hard. Especially like the girl who I was sharing the flat with, she went home for a week, and I was on my own, and like, I didn't see anybody for that week. I just came home from work, slept, ate, got up for work again the next morning, and it was really lonely. It's helped me grow up. Definitely helped me grow up. You know, you see things in a totally different light. You're independent. You're dealing with money. Like at home, you're sort of being cushioned by your parents. You know, they buy the food. They look after all the money. But like over here, you have to look after your own food.
You have to cook.
Yeah, and cook and washing everything, all your clothes. You know, it just you look at life in a totally different way because you have to look after yourself, and you know, just had to grow up.
Emigrating with a qualification makes it easier to get a job and a place to stay. It doesn't always make it easier to live in a foreign country.
I'm happy that I have a job here for a start. That's a nice thing. I have an apartment of my own here. It's very small, but it's the first time I've had one. And there is a certain difference in the standard of living. The process here is a lot slower and a lot longer. And that in itself takes getting used to. And I mean, with over 2 years, I'm still not used to it. Yeah. It's just they have a different mentality, I suppose, and a different mode of conduct and formalities. And they take getting used to, and to slow down, to be patient and slow down to this very slow getting to know one another process is difficult. I think eventually I will go home, and maybe I'm even working at the moment towards the idea of going home or preparing myself to go home. I can't see myself settling here.
Eileen and Donncha came to broaden their horizons in Munich and their experience as engineers with one of the big electronics companies. Eileen and Donncha are paid well, but less than their German counterparts. They have comfortable apartments, good recreational facilities, and plenty of opportunities to travel throughout Europe. So, will they stay?
You miss all the friends that you used to know. You miss the family. It's just, you miss the Irish lifestyle. It's a different lifestyle out here with different customs. And it takes getting used to, and
It's good out here, I think, at the moment, when for a few years, like when you're young and you want to see a bit of Europe, maybe just do things that you can't really do in Ireland.
You don't have to change planes to get to Munich, but you must make a lot of changes if you want to stay there. That is, if you can find a place to stay. Jobs are more plentiful than they are here, and wages are higher, but so are employers' expectations. They speak German in Germany. If you don't, your chances of moving up at work or moving out in the evening are very limited. With or without a qualification, it is difficult. Without preparation and planning, it is almost impossible.
I sort of drifted into it. I remember arriving at Munich airport and thinking, oh no, everyone speaks German here. I hadn't thought about that at all.
For that reason, a lot of the work, a lot of these people will have to settle for the less well-paying jobs.
you know, you're not really inclined to go out because you go out and you really feel as if you're like somebody came from another planet, just landed.
I'm here and I do feel that sometimes I'm missing something, everybody I know and what they're doing.
If there was one thing I'd say to anybody coming out here, is don't come out the way we came out. You have to be prepared. I mean, we just jumped on the boat of Rosslare. We're having the crack and, you know, but yeah, you must be prepared.
Taking off is the exciting part. But when you get there, getting by and getting on is a different matter. This is a tale of two people. Kevin and Miriam crossed the Atlantic to New York and found other journeys before them.
Well, I was working in a men's clothing shop. I was there for 6.5 years. And I found out that it was kind of dead boring, actually. And I said it's time to go away. I like to just get away, you know, try somewhere else. And the reason I decided to go to New York was because I had two sisters living there. So I had somewhere to go to start anyhow, you know.
I was afraid going, and I had this idea that people were very cold and had no time for you, and that if you fell down the street they'd walk by you, and this horrible dread. And I had myself all braced up to say, well, I'm going to know about them and I'm going to know how to deal with this.
It's not that hard to find a place, if you can afford it. In New York, a lot depends on where it is.
You work in New York, right, the money, the wages might sound so great, especially to over here. But what you have to remember is that the cost of living, like for living accommodation, is much higher. You're talking, if you don't have anybody to share with, if you're just looking for yourself, maybe a one-bedroomed little flat in a house, there's like two family residences, would be, you're talking around $500. They require one month's rent in advance, 1 month's rent security or 2 months' rent security. So you're talking right there $1,500. They're unfurnished. They do come with cooker and what have you, but you have to supply your own bedroom furniture, table to eat off, chair to sit on, TV, phone. All that costs money. So really, just walking into a place, that's what you're looking at.
When I first went looking for accommodation on my own, I was really stuck. I spent 2 nights in the street, in fact. And then I get in with an Irish fella and he said, well, listen, you can move in with us. He says, I don't really know how many's there, but you can sleep on the floor. And he was right. I went up to the apartment and the first night I was there, I found out it was a very dirty place. I hadn't cleaned up. I mean, the toilets were blocked up, the shower was blocked up. I slept on the floor that night. There was roaches crawling around me, cockroaches, and it was like hundreds of them. And it was a scary thing because I was used to sleeping in a nice, comfortable bed at home and having my meals laid out for me. I had it easy, I have to say so. I remember one night bringing in a bag of groceries, $30 worth of groceries, and I put whatever needed to be in the fridge and whatever in the cupboards and whatever, put everything away. I said, well, at least I'll have something to eat. It was the last $30 I had. I went out for 2 hours, I came back, I'd say most of the stuff was gone because the people were all in the same situation as me. Most of them were out of work. Most of them had nowhere to stay, so they're staying in this place. And they were all hungry.
Finding work is relatively easy when you're legal. Keeping a job is tough when you're not.
When I started looking for work, I took on babysitting work. Being illegal, I felt that's all that was open to me. Companies couldn't hire you. You didn't have any rights to really anything else. And the only places you could really go for work were private babysitting.
To find a steady job in New York is very hard because you're illegal. There's a heavy fine for the employer if he's caught hiring illegals. And then again, in construction work now, he hires maybe between 80 and 100 illegals. And that's a big fine. That's why there's very little work in New York at the moment.
A lot of them come over and they go in as live-in au pairs and they find that they're exploited. And a lot of them are. I would say 80% of them are. Where you go in and the families, you know, they're very nice people. They'd say, you're part of our family. We don't want you to feel it's like an employer-employee situation. This is your home. We'll take care of you. And you feel great. Now, I have somebody who's going to look after me because you're so afraid being in this whole new world on your own. And then they start to see the real American come out in them. And maybe they don't mean that because they grow up with that. They really don't. They just think that's normal. They go off to work and you might be due to finish at 6 o'clock or in and about. It's flexible work, you know, the time is. And they might decide not to come home till 11 at night. And there you are after working maybe a 14-hour day. People say, but you're only minding children. Minding children is a very, very responsible job. Minding American children is not only very responsible, but it's very hard. I was living on the edge, definitely. And to a degree, it was exciting. Living on the edge, you know, these words, you know, this is like a big adventure to you. There were times I didn't like it. I was very nervous. I became very nervous. I became very cautious and wary of people. And some of the time I didn't like what I was turning into because I never had to think that way before. And I didn't like thinking that of people. But that's what it makes you. It makes you very cautious and very aware. And over there, that's good. That's good.
When you live on the edge, especially without insurance, even a minor illness means major trouble.
The story actually was with that. I chipped a bone in my ankle, went to the doctor, the hospital, and it was for one visit to get the cast on the whole lot. It was nearly $1,000. I looked at the bill, it was all printed out. It was itemized and it said doctor's visit. Just to see the doctor alone was $145. And he wanted me to come back twice a week for the next 4 weeks. I couldn't afford it, so what I done was 4 weeks later, jumped in the bath, took off the cast. I'm not sure if the ankle was better or not, but it felt better. My pocket felt better too.
The hardest part for many emigrants is finding their way into a social scene after work.
It's totally, totally different to the social scene here in Ireland and to what I was used to. They tend to go out dining more. American people, because they go out and they're spending money, expect something for it. Therefore, when they went out socially, they expected to be entertained. Where here we would go out and make our own fun and have our own laughs, and everybody would understand where it's all coming from.
Then at night, when things got quiet and you lay down and started thinking to yourself, I mean, what am I doing? And you started missing your family, missing your friends. You were after leaving all that behind you. You always had someone to call around to their house and have a cup of tea, have a chat, maybe go to the pub or whatever. Over there, you really knew nobody, and the loneliness got to you. It hits a lot of people in different ways. Sometimes they take the drink, and sometimes they take the drugs. Sometimes they keep it inside themselves, which sometimes isn't a good thing to do.
They're very work conscious and very work orientated. Therefore, Sunday evening, 8 o'clock, well, we have to go home now because we have to get up for work. But here, Sunday night, you went out to forget you to get up for work, you know.
Sometimes you do silly things when you're lonely because, all right, you go for a drink to forget about it. Sometimes that's how alcoholism starts. Then again, the drugs. Like one time I went for a walk on my own. I had no money to go for a drink to start off, and I was really lonely. I found out I was in a real bad neighborhood, you know, and I was just lucky enough to get out of it. You just gotta survive on your own and hope that things get better. But Christmas on your own out there is it really hurts you.
Miriam and Kevin came back, but the Ireland they returned to wasn't the Ireland they left. Had Ireland changed, or had they?
Like everybody else, I tended to magnify in my mind everything about Ireland. Oh, this is so much better, because after a while you tend to compare where you came from to there. And I was reaching that stage of, you know, making these comparisons, and I was like, oh, but it's so much better, this is so much better, that's so much better. I started putting America down, you see. And of course, in doing that, I magnified everything in my mind about Ireland. Everything.
Since I come back, I'm very mixed up. It's hard to get settled in again. Things have changed so much. All my friends are away. Everybody else is either married or dead. And it's strange to be home.
I did settle in again, but I never really settled back. I really never settled back. Because in a sense, all I had learned over there too, I couldn't really put to use here, and that's, if you can't use what you learn, it really isn't a lot of good to you. It is, personally, it probably is, but I mean, it was different. I had changed.
Miriam recently got a Donnelly visa. She's returning to New York. Kevin would like to stay in Ireland, if he can get a job.
This is a final call for all passengers traveling on flight EI-103 to New York.
My first piece of advice would be to really question why you want to go and be sure of those reasons. And there are so many ways now to go legally. I would say check them out. If you can go legally, do. It's just a totally different world to you if you're legal.
Before you go, make sure you got somewhere good to stay if you are going, and make sure you have a job. But most of all, make sure you have your visa, your green card or residential visa, your work visa. Because there's no fun out there without that. It's a rough life. A lot of people out there like the rough life, but it's not worth it in the long run. It's only for show.